Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Hit Your Numbers. This week, James is joined by Andy Aveyard. He is a senior sales leader at Zoom. Andy spent his career living at the intersection of strategy and execution and turning blank canvases into high-performing revenue machines. He's known for his sharp thinking, collaborative leadership style, and brings clarity where there's complexity. This is a really exciting episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining. Today I'm joined by Andy. Andy, do you want to give the listeners just a really quick intro into who you are, what you're up to, what your journey's kind of been like, and then we'll jump into a couple of questions.
Yeah, happy to do so. So hi, everyone. And firstly, James, thank you for inviting me on. Pleasure to be here. So Andy Aveyard, I am head of sales for the mid-market segment for Zoom here in the EMEA region. Been fortunate enough to work for Zoom for coming up to 8 years now. So before everybody knew it was a thing, I got on board and saw the future early. So been in technology sales for just over 11 years now, always in the sort of online collaboration, virtual collaboration space. Purely by chance, I ended up in sales. I would like to say it was by design and well orchestrated, but straight out of university, I landed a role for a small software company in the UK in kind of like a sales and marketing, very early stage kind of role function. Definitely steered more towards the sales side of the role rather than the marketing. I'm left the creativity piece behind me, and I've never looked back. So I've had various different positions during my time in sales. So from account executive, covering all the different segments, small business, mid-market, commercial, enterprise. So really good range of selling experience to different types of organizations. And then for the past 5 years, been in sales leadership positions at Zoom. And throughout that time, we've really exploded and had hyper growth. So been a great journey to be a part of. Definitely lots of learnings, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Zoom's growth has been explosive, right? Especially since the pandemic. I think that definitely accelerated the growth, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's obviously there's no getting away from it. I think probably what a lot of people don't realize about Zoom's story is actually how much success we were having prior to that as a private software company in the run up to our IPO in 2019. So I joined in sort of mid 2017, right after the company had received its Series D funding, which was a $100 million round led by Sequoia. And at that time, that's when it was really started to scale out internationally. So I think it was 400 or 500 people at that stage. And then in the run up to IPO, we were going through pretty significant growth as well. And then obviously the pandemic hit, put us into a different kind of stratosphere of company and made us a lot bigger, a lot quicker than perhaps we were ready for. And since then, we do continue to grow. We're definitely sort of innovated into new areas, disruptive in new product categories, things like that. So really exciting chapter of the company to be involved in right now.
Yeah, I mean, every time I log into my Zoom account, usually to share recordings with customers, I always see something new or some different capability in there. It just doesn't feel like you guys are stopping. It's always, which is probably really nice from a sales perspective, right? Because you've always got something new to talk to your customer about, another way of solving a big business problem and expansion into those accounts, right?
It is. It's really interesting, and it's a good segue into probably one of the things that we're going to talk about today, because as we've innovated and made it more of a platform, we've actually sort of developed solutions specifically for different kind of buyers, different personas. And, we speak to different people that we're trying to sell our technology to that aren't the usual suspects of IT. So that's been quite an interesting development. And there's definitely been some interesting learning coming from that as well.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's get into that topic then, because I think we're coming up to end of quarter for you guys. This is probably top of mind, right, as a topic. Yeah. But from your perspective, what would you say is like one thing sales teams can be doing more of to help their champion drive consensus and win more deals?
Yeah, I think it might be kind of an obvious one, but given just how busy everyone is and how much technology companies have to buy these days, I think anything that you can do to remove the workload from your champion will definitely help you. Whether that's, helping them build the business case, write it with them or write it for them in terms of how they present that back up internally. Again, offer to do that for them or at least with them and share the workload. Because I think at any one time, people are going to have multiple projects on the go, not just sole purpose, sole focus on what you're trying to, the project you're trying to work on them with, right? So anything that you can do to give them more time back, which will still get them to the outcome that they want to do, seems to be working quite well for us. I think if you can help remove some of that friction and barriers for them internally as well, in terms of involving other stakeholders, even better. Ask if they would mind being introduced to, if they would mind introducing you to other stakeholders within the business, either referral or we can reach out to them directly. But again, the whole idea is, taking some time out of your champion's diary and workload and doing the work for them.
Couldn't agree more. I think a lot of, and you probably noticed this. It's a good question, actually. I definitely noticed when I went from AE to VP of sales, I became a much better seller when I knew what it was like to be a buyer, like a day in the life, right? Like, I think people sometimes just assume that buyers are just floating between vendor calls and having coffees and chit chats, right? And when they're not on calls, they're feet up, right? Like, these people have got busy schedules. It's just stuff they're cramming in.
Yeah.
Right. Did you notice that trend as well when you became a sales leader, that actually there's a lot more to it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can think of a couple of examples on where I've been on the other side of the fence this year in terms of being that buyer, and how much corralling of internal teams, internal process you have to just go through just to get some stuff bought. It's actually very cumbersome and, again, quite time consuming. So one of the instances, I mean, we bought a software called Lucia for contact data, and actually they did a really good job of getting around my stakeholders for me and preparing presentations and giving me content that it was much easier for me to set up some time with the people I needed to get buy-off and sponsorship for internally. Just sit down with them and go, here's the data, here's the information. It's a no-brainer. Here's a business case, why? And again, that sort of sticks out to me as well. They helped me not so much get to the decision, because I think we were going to make that decision anyway, but certainly getting there a lot quicker by doing the work for me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I wrote down a couple of things then when you were speaking, but like making it easier to buy. Like it's a lot harder to buy today than it was, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I remember even some of my VP roles, like I would buy stuff that I knew would add value, but if it didn't, it wasn't the end of the world. Where now, like, people are really, really careful on what they're buying, and they're struggling to justify the cost to finance, right? So I think making it really easy for people to buy, and we're probably going to get into this a little bit more detail, which things important. I also loved the part where you're talking about, ultimately, you're talking about enabling your champion to go and sell when you're not in the room, like building that business case, not a huge, like 50 slide deck about here's our VCs, our global offices, this is our executive team. This is the problem we have to solve. This is the root cause of the problem. And if we don't solve it, this is the negative consequences that we're going to feel like. How do we talk that language to the executive team and grab their attention? Because they don't have much of it these days. And every different part of the organ, especially an enterprise, like everyone's coming at these guys for budget, and if it's not relevant or it's not going to grab their attention, they're just gonna, they're gonna hand off that conversation and move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think for me it's a bit of a control thing, right? And think about this if you're a seller out there, think about it from an AE's perspective. You're going to put all this time and investment and effort and energy into creating what you think is a really compelling proposal for that business, and then you're just going to put that into your champion and hope that they do a good job from it. So anything that you can do to make sure, to talk about control, that the message that you would want to convey to that decision-making committee or board, whatever it might be, you've given as much of that steer to your champion as possible. So they're almost just kind of regurgitating what you want them to say with their own internal spin, of course. I wouldn't leave that to chance. I'd really make sure that part particularly is nailed down, and you're under no illusions that your champion is going to echo exactly what you would were you in the room there with them.
I totally agree. And being a leader of mid-market sales at Zoom, Andy, and being end of quarter, like how much are you on top of like looking at opportunities in the pipeline that we can close in this period, and figuring out ways to map those accounts and get more people involved in the deals with your teams to help them have a successful outcome?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what I spend quite a lot of time on, particularly this time in the quarter. We've got some great tools that help us with that, actually. And I'm sure there's loads of technology that's out there to help sales leaders do this, but really leaning into AI for a lot of this. But I think it's become very obvious for us last 12 to 18 months, our win rates when we only have 2 or less contacts involved in the deal versus our win rates when we have 3 or more. And we're selling to mid-market, right? So you're not going to have the huge enterprise decision-making stakeholder teams. 3 to 5 people, maybe if you get into double figures, that's quite a lot in our category of company. But it's just, it's so important that you have multiple people at the table. You understand what's in it for them. You can articulate the benefit to them. And therefore, it makes, again, you create that groundswell within the account to help you get your deal done and get it done faster, because there's more reasons that business will benefit from what you're trying to sell them. If you get stuck at 1 to 2 people, I think you just introduce an unnecessary risk into your chances of being successful. We've all had that experience before where your person's gone out on holiday, person's had some unfortunate event happen in their personal lives, which means that they cannot deliver for you. Where if you've got that safety net of very good relationships with multiple stakeholders that are equally invested in getting this done just as much as your champion are, of course that's going to lead to a higher success rate for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's not a home run every time, but I kind of think about it this way. Let's say the economic buyer is the CFO and your prospect is the IT director, for example. But that person's only been in that role for 30, 60, 90 days. Because a lot of salespeople use that as a trigger, like new in role. So let's prospect into them because they probably want to come in and drive change. The problem is that CFO might not fully appreciate or have confidence in that IT director's ability to evaluate the right fit solution for their context, right? So they still might take a punt because they're like, hey, I don't want to put a barrier up and hold this person back. Or they might delay it and say, can we just wait a couple more months? You got that one scenario. And then the other scenario, which is you've got the same CFO, you've got the IT director as a champion, but then you've also got head of security and head of infrastructure. And the 3 of them, and those other 2 people have been there for 2-3 years. You got 3 of them coming with this business case. It just feels like a safe bet. It feels like there's great consensus across the organization. This is the right thing that we should be doing. Also, something that a lot of AEs won't think about or really care about, because once the deal's done, it's done to them. But that's when it really starts for the customers, when they sign the contract. And when more people are in agreement and aligned on this is the right thing to do, the success of that project is greater because there's less risk. It's just like Andy alone got to implement this thing, and if it doesn't work, he's going to feel overwhelmed and maybe drop the ball. Where if there's 3 to 5 people in different departments behind this, the economic buyer is like, hey, this feels like a safe bet because lots of people believe this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just as you were talking then, I was thinking through some very live examples of this that we have in play for deals for this quarter as well. I mean, look, you can have some success just selling to one person, I think, but unless you're processing upsell orders where you've already got that established relationship, I think in this day and age, particularly in current economic climate, businesses need that safety net of multiple people buying into the project in order to move forward with it. Otherwise, they're just not going to do it right now. They may do it further down the line, but I think you're just giving yourself the best chance to win through having multiple people invested in the project and all having something to gain from it as well.
Yeah. You mentioned something earlier about there's a load of tools, and there is a load of tools. Do you use any specific tools or software to properly map out accounts?
I'll try and not plug Zoom too much for this, but the way in which we've innovated our AI offering and our conversational intelligence offering, so we are very much using our own in-house solutions for this, and we're doing some really pretty cool stuff with our by leaning into our AI offering. So with our revenue accelerator tool now, it will give you the option to see from a sales leadership perspective how those conversations are going, who's involved, gives you coaching opportunities. It's also good for flagging, risks that we've identified. Potentially, if I can only see 1 or 2 people involved, then for me, if that's a committed deal for the quarter and it's a certain value, I'm like, oh, okay, we need to dig into that. So it gives you the opportunity to have a bit further inspection and see where I, as a leader, can add support. And then with our Zoom AI Companion and Zoom Docs tool, which we've recently released, we can do a thorough account plan, a thorough account mapping in a matter of minutes, which is something that used to take, as you'll know, James, like hours and hours. And you'll get the guts of it. Of course, you want to tailor it and spend a bit more time being specific, but through, Sales Navigator, an AI tool of your choice, and some clever prompts, you can actually pretty easily identify exactly who you would need to be. I think the other thing that we use as well, I'll give it a plug, a tool called Clary from a forecasting perspective. So that's got some really cool modules in it whereby I can sort of see the deal health look at the engagement, not just in terms of the number of people, but also the frequency and the pace in which we're engaging with the client, and if that's one way or two way. And again, these are all good indicators. They're not necessarily the be all and end all of have you got a deal or not, but they're pretty indicative of the strength of the deal. And then as a sales leader, you can dig into that and see how you can support your teams.
Yeah, and support is the key word, right? These tools are here to enhance the sales organization, and everyone's talking about do more with less. Like, we absolutely can if we, as sales leaders, are enabled to do that. So like tools like Clary, I'm a big fan of Gong, used Gong a few times, like tools that help me drive where I need to go and coach reps. So I need to go and help reps, in this case, like go wider into their accounts, I think is only a good thing. And is there a specific stage in the sales process for you and your team where you're like, hey, we're now at this stage, we now need to get really serious about going wide?
I think there is an art to this, and I think that it's more of like a feel kind of play. Sounds a bit wishy-washy, but it'll come with experience. You'll know over time when it's necessary to try and get that wider stakeholder engagement, and actually when it isn't, because doing it too early and involving people for the sake of it might not necessarily add value to you, and you risk undermining your existing contact if you're, hey, look, you're basically saying, I don't believe you can take this forward for me, that we need to speak to other people, which it's not going to go well for you. So I definitely think you can avoid doing this too early. I'd say deal momentum is probably a really good indicator that you should use to judge when it's appropriate to bring wider people on. If you have a good intro discovery call and maybe a quick follow-up with a prospect, seemingly you can meet their requirements, seemingly you've done the basic qualifications, budget and timeframes and things like that. If you then only meet with that person from there on in, you put in a lot of faith that they're going to be able to get this done for you. And we've got quite an easy way of doing this. I think we sort of play it back to the customer and say, in addition to asking around their process, give them confidence that typically when you're speaking to other customers of similar size, similar nature, when conversations progress to this stage, we'll normally be engaged with whoever it might be, the CFO, COO, IT director, whatever that persona is that you're selling to, and asking them, does it make sense for them to be involved now because of reason A, reason B, reason C? And you'll find that people are a lot more responsive to that. And inevitably, you will need to be engaged with these people to get the deal done anyway. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. I do think there is a bit of a specific sales skill to judging when that time is right.
Yeah, and knowing which direction to go as well, right? I think a lot of sales orgs are so desperate to get to power fast that actually when they get there, they're not ready to hold a proper conversation. And as a result, they have a bad outcome. So I came up with this kind of compass kind of concept to this, okay, where you've got like north, east, south, and west. North is economic buyer. You're in the middle at the moment with the champion, right? And north is the economic buyer, and everyone's just desperate to get to them because they can unlock the cash. But actually, if we just take our time and go east and west into different champions, that might be, for me, I'm with the VP of sales and I need to go into, VP of RevOps and sales manager, whatever it might be. Go and get some consensus a little bit wider in some other teams, and then actually go south into some of the technical power users who are going to be those raving fans. So like if I'm Clary or Gong, that's going to be an AE that doesn't want to manually update the forecast every 30 seconds and the tool's going to do it for them. Those guys are going to be jumping up and down for the tool, right? Because they're going to get more time back to go and sell. So once I've done this kind of east, west, south approach, when I'm ready to go north to the economic buyer, one, I've got consensus across a wide group of people, but also my business case is going to be more credible and valuable, so that when I present it, I'm going to have a better outcome.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a really sensible way of framing it, actually.
Yeah. Go slow to go fast is kind of another way of talking about it, right? So, I just think like if anyone's listening, don't feel like there's this mad rush that you need to get to the person that can write the check ASAP. Just think it might take me a little bit longer. Like I remember like in my last role, we were working on a deal with a very, very, very large brand, and the exec team were like, hey, we need to get this deal over the line. I'm like, if we rush and go straight to where you think we need to go, we've lost this deal a few times, we're going to have the same outcome. let's run a different play this time round. Let's go a little bit wider. It might take us a little bit longer, but we've got better chance of getting this one through finally if we do it this way. And as a result, we won that deal. When we were eventually asking for budget, which they didn't have, they had to unlock it from somewhere else. It felt like a safe bet. Yeah. So don't worry about trying to drive to the finish line so fast if you're going to put all of them into close lost. Take a little bit longer and put more of them into close won.
Yeah. Have you trademarked that compass concept, by the way?
I haven't. I probably need to. It's in a lot of my training programs. I probably need to. So it's nice, like for me, like to think about it. It's almost like, where am I in this deal? Here's my compass. Am I ready to go north, or should I be going east, west, or south right now?
Yeah, it makes complete sense, like I said, and I like the idea of almost having to earn the right to go north, right? You have to make sure you've checked all areas, and you go in there having spoken to end users that could be fanatics of what you're trying to sell, making sure you're getting additional use cases from cross-functional personas that could be brought in. When you add that plus your existing use case or proposition, you take that it's just going to be more valuable. So yeah, very good idea. Yeah,
for the customer and for you, because usually your deal's going to get bigger as well, right? Because the more use cases, more people you get involved in the solution, the revenue goes up on that deal as well, right? So it's a win-win for everybody, I think. Another thing I want to talk to you about, so we're talking about obviously like breaking into different parts of the org, getting more people involved. What's your thinking about, my champion is just gatekeeping me? Like, they're not taking me to, I'm earning the right, I'm doing really good pre-call planning. I'm like, hey Sarah, like I noticed Andy is your head of mid-market sales for EMEA at Zoom. I think Andy's going to get great value from this use case and this use case. Would you be okay sponsoring a meeting, next with Andy? And they're like, no, just stick with me. At what point do you say enough's enough? We're either going to go directly to that person, or we're going to call it a day, pick up our ball and go and play in a different park?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing to do as a salesperson is to walk away from something, isn't it? But sometimes you are better off investing that effort and energy into projects with more chance, no matter how hard it is to let go. What do we do specifically? Yeah, look, I think you have to reflect on where you are. If that's a familiar scenario you find yourselves in, reflecting back on what you've done today, going over the original qualification calls, going over the original value proposition that you have for that organization, whoever it may be, and have I really got all the details here? Have I really got a good story for this business? Almost take the person out of it right now. And if you feel that you have, not that I would ever advocate doing this in an unprofessional way, but sometimes you do have to go around people and get to the right people. So providing the intent is right, you've had that, I'd say multiple discussions with a champion or gatekeeper around getting in, the necessity to get introduced to other people. Ultimately, if they're not going to take you there, it's probably quite symbolic of where the health of your deal. So getting around them, identifying those people, if they're not willing to introduce you, I would always advocate doing that before you decide to walk away, because you just don't know what these people are if you've never had an engagement with them. Not in the business of upsetting people, but ultimately, if you don't feel that you're getting the support you need from your champion and the deal's going nowhere, I would definitely be in favor of at least giving that tactic a go before you decide to call time of death on it.
1,000,000%. It's worth taking the shot, right? At the moment, it sounds like that deal is potentially dead. So if you take the shot, it doesn't work out, you're kind of in a similar position anyway. And, I teach medic a lot to sales orgs. I've implemented it in all of my sales leadership roles. And for me, obviously, champion is probably the most critical, because people aren't just lining up to sign DocuSigns at the end of the quarter, right? Someone's driving that for you internally. So if you haven't got someone doing it, that's a tough old deal. But if they're not going to take you or the business case to the economic buyer, then it's probably not going to get approved anyway. So like, one thing that I really liked when I was going through my learnings years ago, when I was, going into medic or medpic, is using something like a champion letter. So if I'm literally hitting brick wall, I'm earning the right, I'm doing really good pre-call planning, I'm mapping out the account, and then I'm using like a talk track into why we should bring different people in, and I'm still getting that rejection, I'm going to write directly to the economic buyer, but in a way that's bigging up the champion, so that they're never going to say, how dare you tell my boss how amazing I am and how creative I've been through the evaluation and out the box thinking. So I'm going to them and saying, hey, we believe we've got a really big problem. This is the cost of inaction. we actually would love to take you through the business case and how we believe we can recover X or whatever it might be. We've been working with Julie. She's been fantastic, Would you be open to a conversation? And they're probably going to reach out to the champion, right? And probably send the email. But for me, I've done it so many times now, and the champion's never gone, how dare you say to my boss how good I am, right? Like if I was like, hey, I'm getting stuck with Julie, she's just gatekeeping me from you, give me your time, then it's going to be a different response. Have you ever tried anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good suggestion. I think one thing that does work well for us is really tapping into your senior leadership and your executives to do that overreach on your behalf. So you still maintain credibility ultimately with your champion / gatekeeper. But again, like more of a soft message with a value add, like, hey, I understand that the teams are working really well together. Unfortunately, it sounds like we're not able to move forward right now. Is there anything I can do from an executive standpoint to assist you in, a bit more of a softer approach, but from a different voice and a more senior voice? And I think there is something to be said for connecting people at the right levels. Again, if that message then fed its way back to your champion, like, hey, this person from Zoom's messaged me, what the hell are we talking about? Well, then you know where your deal was anyway, and you've just got there quicker, right? Invariably, it'll be, okay, you might get a bit more of a business response, it might solicit just a response if your champion's gone quieter. But I don't think there's any downsides to it, because the net is you get to an outcome, you get to dialogue, which you otherwise weren't having. So that works well for us. I do like your suggestion. I think that praising them, so if it does get back to them, you're kind of covered, then it's a bit of a safety net.
Yeah, only because I've been burnt doing it the wrong way before. And I'm like, hey, you've got to learn from your mistakes. But I like what you're talking about there as well, like leveraging that network. It's amazing when again, it depends on the context, but if my org's VC backed, I'm going to, the VC's LinkedIn profiles and looking for mutual connections. Because let's say we've got a VC and that VC is connected with you and you're the economic buyer. I'm going to reach out to that VC and say, hey, we're really trying to get this deal over the line with Zoom. We're coming up to end of quarter. We need to get some time with Andy. I notice you're connected with him as well. Do you know him? How do we know that person doesn't play golf with you every Sunday?
Yeah.
You just don't know, do you?
You'd be amazed how many times just opening up the books, even just to your colleagues, you can have someone in accounting you never spoken to. Hey, I see you connected to this person. Yeah, it's my neighbor. What do you want me to do? Yeah, everybody is a salesperson for the company at the end of the day, and if they can help you, you just don't know the power of the network. So always worth exploring.
Yeah, I think we've spoken a lot. I've really enjoyed this part of the conversation about like how sellers can be more effective, trying to go wider in their accounts. Let's just finish up a couple of questions here I've got around like for the leaders listening, because you've got great repetition and experience leading really strong team through a big period of growth, and we're talking about multi-threading and all of that kind of good stuff. Like any tips or advice you'd give sales leaders who might be starting out from a coaching and training perspective, either in this area or just in general, to help your reps be more effective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably depending on what kind of tenure you have in your team as that first time leader will kind of dictate a little bit on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. But I think getting everybody motivated and aligned to the same goal and bought into that team mentality has always worked well for me, and just creating that we win as a team, we lose as a team environment. Very hard to do in sales, because at the end of the day, it's an individual, it's an IC role, right? So you almost need your lone wolf to be part of the pack. So it's a bit of a tricky balance to get right. I think that I would really spend a lot of time in the early stages understanding the individual motivation, something that I probably didn't do particularly well when I was starting out in sales leadership and sales management. I was just sort of going in and, how can I help you with your deals? How can I help you hit your goal? Where do you need support? Where do you want to improve and develop? And that's all well and good, and you should absolutely do that with your individuals. But that first conversation, those first conversations should be more, familiarizing yourself with where they want to get to and aligning how you support them and helping them get there. And then everything else can sort of like fall into place on that, because I think without that, you run the risk of making your team feel like they're just numbers and they're there to hit the number. And really, if you can understand what they're hoping to achieve in their career and how you might be able to help influence that, you're going to get a different dynamic and a different relationship with them. And once you've got them bought into your vision and you've got good understanding on an individual level, they can easily buy into that team mentality a lot more.
Yeah. Something I read years ago that really, really stuck with me when I kind of was getting into sales leadership was, when you become a sales leader, it's like you're being given like 5 or 6 kids. Now, at the time, I didn't have any kids, so I didn't really understand what they meant by that. Now I've got a 9-month-old baby. I mean, I don't have the drama that you would have with a normal kid, so I'm sure I'm going to learn even more as he grows up a bit. But what they were basically saying was, you're now responsible for those 5 or 6 people. Like, your job is to make them great. So like as a parent now, my job is to make sure my son grows up to be a great person and all of those kind of good things, right? The problem with you're a line manager is, unlike when you're a father, is your kid's not going to leave you. It might leave the house to move out, right? But you're still going to be their parent. Unfortunately, you're going to spend all this time training and coaching this person and motivating them and understanding their drivers and making them great. And they might leave the org, and that happens, right?
Yeah.
But that's our job, is to make those people great, because when they're great, we'll do great things as a leader. And I just see a lot of that stuff that I love, by the way, you're talking about. They're motivated. We understand them at an intimate level. What are their drivers? Why do they come to work? We're not all just only coin operated. There's other things that are involved, and selling has changed. We're talking about multi-threading. We're talking about going deeper into the account. It's the same on our side. We win and lose as a team. This is a team sport. If we're losing alone, we're running the sales process not very well and in an ineffective way. I think just getting, using data, you spoke about like Clary and some of the Zoom tools that are available to people today, like using data to inform, okay, Andy seems to be really strong here, but seems to be struggling here. Rather than me just doing cookie cutter generic training that's not going to help him, I'm going to isolate a problem and then work with him on a coaching plan to make that a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah, I think there'll always be things as a sales leader that can be applied to each member of the team in terms of getting everybody better and developing skills. But really, where you're going to see the biggest growth is honing in on those specific gaps right now at an individual level, which will be different, and seeing how you can help them raise their game on that point. This is something that we're focused quite a lot on, because in the area of the business that I'm responsible for here at Zoom in the mid-market role, it is still quite a early to mid-stage sales career role. Not necessarily young people, but people that are early to mid tenure in their sales career. And it's really important that you spend a lot of time helping them become the best that they can be, whatever that level is. And hopefully in doing so, this position can be a springboard into other positions higher up within the company where they can go on to add value. So I don't just think about it helping them here and now, I'm really helping the business 5 years from now, because the talent we're cultivating in my segment are going to be our enterprise sellers of tomorrow. So really crucial we get it right.
Yeah, 100%. And what really saddens me is when a rep reaches out and says, hey, I've decided to leave sales. I'm going into something else. And when I dig a little bit deeper, they're like, I just got so sick and tired going from job to job where I get no training. There's literally no coaching. It's a 5-10 minute random phone call I get one day about the forecast, and my next steps field hasn't been updated. And then they leave because they've got to go and do it to somebody else. I think that's really sad, because we've probably built fantastic careers. You can build a fantastic career in sales. You don't need a degree, right? And that's part of the problem, is no one's actually educated on how to do this stuff effectively. So they make a lot of mistakes and takes time. But you can build a great career. But unfortunately, a lot of leaders don't prioritize training and coaching because they're, I hate to say it, too busy. They're not too busy. They're just prioritizing other things other than getting into it with their team and making them great.
Yeah,
and that's a frustration.
It is a little bit of a chicken and egg situation as a sales leader, because do I not focus on delivering the number at all costs, to take a step back to train and coach my guys so I'm not in this position again? Or do I not address that part of it and put extra effort to see how I can get there? So I empathise a little bit with them. But going back to one of the points you made, because I think it's quite interesting, and I don't know what you think, but I'm definitely seeing it develop positively for sales as a profession. And I feel like the stigma around being a salesperson, introducing yourself to somebody, hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm in tech sales, or I'm in sales. I feel like that is getting less disapproval over the years, and maybe like 5-10 years ago. But, oh yeah, okay. It's shifting onto other industries and sectors, I think, which is probably a good thing. But people you can have amazing professional careers in sales. Like, set yourself up for 10, 20, 30 years and doing that, you'd be very successful. Let's be honest, you can earn a lot of money if you are very successful, but you'll have a very rewarding and gratifying career. And I think some of the things that could be put in a more positive light in regards to, the satisfaction that you get when you genuinely help transform a company and you build great relationships with people that, last for a long, long time just through your business interactions. It probably doesn't get spoken enough. And you just focus on, the money and the cold calling and the shady business kind of things, which gives sales a bit of a bad rap.
Yeah. There's something really special about when you book a meeting through a cold call, and there's something really special that you feel when you get a completed DocuSign back. But for me, there's something that's even better than that. There's something now as I build my own business that I have to really consider, and it's the beauty of, wearing all of these different hats is actually following through and making sure the customers become successful post sale, and hearing those great stories. Hey, win rates up, or we've reduced our time to close, or our forecasting accuracy has gone through the roof, right? And it's a really great feeling when you get that closed loop. So yeah, I think it's something that, yeah, you can do really well in your role, but also when you have done that part, it's really rewarding to hear you're actually having an impact on organizations, but also on the people in that organization, so they can finish work on time and spend time with their kids or do what they're passionate about, not filling in a spreadsheet until midnight because they've got no tools or capability to do it. So I think that's a powerful thing. I know we're close on time. I've just got one, maybe two very quick questions. I think it'd be helpful for people that may be out there looking for work. So you see it now a lot, is somebody puts a job advert up and they get 1,000 applications in 24 hours. It's a different beast probably to when you were looking for a job last. It's definitely very different to when I was. Any advice if you put up a role on your team as in mid-market sales because you're hiring for a new rep, any advice you'd give somebody rather than just applying for the role on LinkedIn?
I think, yeah, a couple of things. Got to be kind of careful what I say here, but not to discourage people from going out there and trying to do something new and making an application for that. But when potential employers are putting very specific job descriptions out there that have really fundamental set of requirements for candidates we would be willing to assess for this role, if you haven't got any of that, you're going to have to do something very creative and compelling to stand out and be considered. So, throwing your hat in the ring because you like the idea of the role, even though you've got no necessary experience or you don't meet any of that requirements, you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but if you are going to do that, you have to be very, very different and really stand out from the rest because you're already on the back foot versus a lot of the candidate pool that company will be assessing. So, that's a very real experience that I had. We get hundreds and sometimes it's not there. Again, not to say you shouldn't do that, but really think about standing out if that's the path you're going down. What should somebody do to stand out? To me, if they have got those relevant experiences, I think it is good to drop a message to the hiring manager on LinkedIn. It's good to have some time with people if they can afford it prior to the process. It's a bit frustrating as a hiring manager because you have to do it a lot, but actually, it's a good indicator for me. And even if I can't commit the time to it, the fact that person has researched me, sent me something personal, and is offering that they would like to ask some questions before they think about it, I like that kind of mindset. I like that kind of mentality. It shows that they're serious about this. So again, you might not get 100% hit rate on it, but I think at least making that effort you've identified the hiring manager, I'm going to try and connect with you. Probably on LinkedIn is a good. Personally, I like receiving messages there as opposed to email, and then I'll always try and get back to people even if it's not going to work out.
Yeah, and that's so important. A lot of sales leaders are looking and qualifying people based on characteristics, not because they're trying to be awkward, but hiring the right people is the most important thing we need to do, right, as a sales leader. So it's not that we're being awkward or, we don't want to give you the time of day. It's that we have to find the right people. And we're doing it for you as well. If I bring you in and you're not right, you're going to have a really tough time. You're going to really struggle and it's going to only end one way, right? Yeah. So yeah, to anyone listening to that, Andy said, if you can see here's a set of characteristics that are required for the role and you don't have them, either one of three things: don't apply and reach out with a reason as to why you're still applying, or pause the application and go and figure out a way of acquiring, those characteristics or those skills or whatever it might be, and then come back.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, you're just going to get ignored and get deflated. And I love the point about standing out. Before we wrap, like, quick story. In my last org, I was hiring for an SDR. The rep actually didn't apply through the website, sent me a prospecting email by calling out some observation in the job description, probably one of the problems that I'm hiring for or opportunities I'm hiring for in the first place, how he believed he could come in and hit the ground running, and then hyperlinked a brag folder. And when I clicked that brag folder was screenshots of high performance.
Yeah, I like that.
We went all the way to the final.
Yeah.
Didn't apply for the job.
Did you hire him or her?
We didn't hire him in the end. We hired somebody else. It was close.
It
was really close. But he managed to stand out, and from a top of funnel perspective, compared to the other candidate, night and day.
Yeah, I love creative things like that. It just, again, makes you stand out, right? And that, as much as that's like abstract and out of the box thinking, it's probably not taken that much effort to just do something differently that brings you to the top of the pack.
5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And we're talking about going and landing our dream job and going and building a great career, right? So just think, if you're out of work and you're looking for, your next role, don't worry about just applying at volume. Pick a great company that you're passionate about that can probably survive in any market, like a Zoom, right? Then go and look at the hiring manager. Does that look like someone I want to go and spend time with? Because this is a tough gig, right? We're going to spend a lot of time and effort. Does Andy look like the chap that's going to want to build and make me great? Yeah, he is. Great. I'm going to then reach out in a personalized way and grab his attention. So yeah, just something to think about. Anything else you'd add, Andy?
No, nail on that. Yeah.
Awesome. I know I've stolen you for another 15 minutes over what I asked for, but thank you so much. I think it's going to be really, really helpful for our listeners. Thanks so much for spending time with us. For anyone that's listening, I'll be sharing this on YouTube and LinkedIn shortly. Andy, thank you so much for sharing your advice with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Awesome.